Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 787, Monday, May the 20th, 2019. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, let's get to the news. There's plenty of it to cover, and then at the end of the video we'll name the dumbass of the week. Okay, so Trey Gowdy was on Maria Bartiromo. I'm sure many of you saw that, but for those of you who didn't, you missed something here, because Trey Gowdy said that he has seen the transcripts of the Halper / Turk operation. He has seen the transcripts of the Halper / Turk operation. And he said those transcripts exonerate Papadopoulos. They exonerate Papadopoulos. And he also added to Maria Bartiromo that he understands how these things work based on his career as a prosecutor. He says that when an FBI agent is sent in as an informant, he or she is wired. He says there is going to be a transcript. He says, I have seen it, and so has John Ratcliffe. Not only that, I do believe that Nunes has seen it as well, and Mark Meadows. Remember, it was Mark Meadows who asked Papadopoulos if his lawyers ever said anything to him about seeing a transcript. This is why Papadopoulos believes that he was one of the reasons why he believes he was being recorded, and that there is a recording or what have you. So it's very likely that Halper and possibly Misfit were wired. Downer is claiming he was not recording the conversation, but I don't think I believe him. Let's put it that way. We're going to find out. We also have Gowdy saying that the dossier is bad enough that it was used 4 times. Once to get the original FISA on Carter Page, 3 additional times for the renewal. But he says that it may have been used, and he's suggesting it was, used a 5th time on somebody else. My guess is it's not going to take long before we find out who that other person was, who the person was that the dossier was used for the 5th time to get a FISA on. That's probably what Trey Gowdy will let slip out later in the week, because now he's already put this out there. Someone's now going to follow up and ask him about it, and eventually he'll spit that out as well. Of course, we have Eric Fast and Furious Holder having the unmitigated gall to come out and say that Barr is not fit to lead the DOJ. This is the guy who called himself Obama's wingman. This is the guy who was held in contempt, who refused to turn over documents about a real crime where an actual death was involved of a border agent. Eric Holder is quite nervous as well, because remember, we just learned a couple of weeks ago that this entire thing was much bigger than just what happened to Trump and other Republicans who were likely spied on during 2016, that this has been going on for at least 4 years, which could go back into the time where Holder was actually the Attorney General. It's very possible that while Holder was Attorney General, that this type of spying on political opponents was happening. Of course, we learned from Kathleen Kvelic that she was actively communicating with Bruce Ohr. We saw the text of Bruce Ohr and Kathleen Kvelic discussing how they had a little dirt that they might be able to use on Trump, and that excited Bruce Ohr quite much. So now Nelly Ohr has a criminal referral against her. It's being reported that Bruce Ohr was interviewed last week. I don't know who did the interview, but apparently he was interviewed, and it appears that they're focusing a lot more on Bruce Ohr right now, obviously his wife as well. But up until now, he had been trying to play himself off as just someone who was like a middleman, unknowingly passing information from his wife into the FBI, and saying, oh, I didn't read what was on the flash drives, I didn't read the stuff she gave me, I just was passing things along, sort of thing. But now it's obvious, and there's other evidence as well, that Bruce Ohr was deeply involved, much more involved than he's let on, along with his wife, as part of the main coup plotters. So I would expect that Bruce Ohr certainly, well, Nelly Ohr is going to come under more indictments for other things, but Bruce Ohr is also going to come under indictments as being one of the inside coup plotters. He was kind of the guy who was able to move things on the inside, which I'm sure they were going to use him as a source, and they probably did. We probably just haven't seen his name unredacted as one of the pieces of information or sources that they're going to try to use. I'm sure that will be discovered at some point as they go through the documents and interview the witnesses. So Bruce and Nelly have a lot of problems, most of them legal and criminal. Well, we have Creepy Joe. He recently gave a speech in Philadelphia, had about 150 people there. That's not really too good in the city of brotherly love, where a Democrat should be very popular, especially the leading candidate right now for the nomination. 150 people is all you can draw in Philly? Huh. That's not very good. Now, if you saw the video, when Joe Biden comes up on stage, he goes to give his wife a hug, and he literally starts sniffing her hair and starts running his hands down around her waist, at which point, if you watch the video, it's hilarious. You see Biden's wife pull back from him and physically push and remove Biden's hands from around her waist and immediately break away from him. She's quite aware of the fact that he's a creep and he's a handsy guy, and she probably knew that would be on video, and she didn't want the video out there of Creepy Joe groping her in front of an audience. I'm sure it's his wife. He can grope her anytime he wants, but generally, if you're going to grope your wife or your girlfriend, you're going to do it, behind closed doors somewhere, not out in front of 150 people at a campaign rally. So there you go. Creepy Joe can't give up the groping and the sniffing. You just can't do it. We have Joe DeGeneva saying that Comey was going to blackmail Trump. If you remember, last week, we have Baker being interviewed on PMSNBC, and he says that there were people at the high-level FBI people who were concerned that Comey may be either trying to blackmail Trump or would appear as if he was trying to blackmail Trump. And Joe DeGeneva is saying, he was definitely going to blackmail Trump. And yes, I can certainly see that. Certainly he might have blackmailed him to keep his job or to keep quiet about things he might learn. It's hard to say exactly what Comey had in mind, but yes, I mean, you could easily make the case that there was a blackmail plot in play, in Comey's mind anyway. Man, oh man, he has got a lot of problems. Okay, so I talk a lot about, and I have been since the very first week of doing TowerGate videos, why I believe that this was a rotten Reverend Clinton operation, planned, directed, organized, and controlled by the rotten Reverend Clinton, and that she is the impetus and the push behind every bit of this that ended up being the Spygate fiasco. There's a lot of reasons for that I could go through, and I imagine over these many months I've probably mentioned it a few times, but there's one thing that should make it clearly obvious to every single person looking at this, if you just step back and look at the big view of it, the wide view. If you look at all of the rotten Reverend Clinton's clients, for the dossier, they happen to be also the exact same people who are the sources for the FBI's counterintelligence operation and for the assets used by the CIA, Mr. Potato Head, to try and entrap Trump campaign people, such as Papadopoulos, Stone, Page, Flynn, and Caputo. So it's nearly impossible to sit back and try to make the case that these two things were on completely different tracks. Here we have all the same people involved in putting together the dossier, the Confusion GPS crowd and all their assets. At the same time, we have the FBI investigations, which is using the dossier and essentially the Fusion GPS people and their assets. So here we have both the Rotten Reverend Clinton using the dossier that she commissioned. All those people, the dossier people, paid for by Clinton. Same exact people are the people providing the information for the FBI investigation. So you would have to try to make the argument that these two things are running on completely different tracks and that one didn't know about the other. One was not connected to the other. Same people doing the Clinton dossier are the same people that are essentially being used for the FBI, their investigation, who they're relying on. Same information coming from the same place. So the idea that these things are on two totally different tracks and that there wasn't some sort of collaboration or collusion between the two is just laughable. All that's really needed here is to tie them together. Where is the link, the direct link that ties the Rotten Reverend Clinton to the operation? And I think we're going to find it, and I think it's going to have something to do with there's some liaison between the Rotten Reverend Clinton and John Brennan. Some liaison there. Now, we obviously know she has all these connections to the State Department, and of course Obama and Loretta Lynch and all these things. And that could, again, this could have something to do with the Lynch-Clinton tarmac meeting. So I have no doubt that when we get to the end of this, there is going to be a clear, indisputable connection between the Rotten Reverend Clinton and the people who started this counterintelligence investigation, or if you want to go back farther than that, John Brennan, who provided the phony intelligence which he managed to move into the FBI so they could do the domestic investigation. And I find it very difficult to believe that we're not going to find, when we get to the end of this, that there was clear collaboration, coordination, and collusion between the Rotten Reverend Clinton and these government agencies. Hard for me to believe that they're running down different tracks, yet they use all the same information, all the same people, but yet that they have no connection. This just doesn't make any sense. And this is why I believe when we get to the bottom of all this, we are going to find that the Rotten Reverend Clinton was one of the, if not the chief person actually running this operation, motivating Brennan, motivating people at the FBI DOJ, pushing this through various intermediaries, which is what the Rotten Reverend Clinton does. She uses dirty people to do her dirty work. She doesn't push the buttons herself. She has someone else push the button. So it takes a little more time to dig it out. But this is how the Rotten Reverend Clinton operates. She uses intermediaries, 2, 3, 4 levels of them, to try to separate herself from being the actual trigger man. But ultimately, we are going to find, especially when the perps start singing, that this is exactly what occurred. And of course, when you look at the so-called confidential informants who were put into the campaign, at least 2 of them have solid connections to the Rotten Reverend Clinton. That would be Misfit, who claims he's a member of the Clinton Foundation, a huge supporter of the Rotten Reverend Clinton. Papadopoulos' wife says that Misfit knows Hillary quite well, and she knows for a fact that they had dinner together at least on one occasion. And of course, we know that Downer has a long history with the Clintons, was involved in making a large donation on behalf of the Australian people to the Clinton Foundation. He and Bill went to school together at Oxford back in the day. The Clintons and Downer, they all know each other very well. And the only person that we haven't made a direct tie from the Clintons to him is Halper. But it's hard to believe with Halper's close association with all of these other people and the fact that he was certainly pushing for Hillary Clinton. And we know that because he told Papadopoulos that he thought Obama was a bum. And then what they really needed was Hillary Clinton, and that Trump was bad news. This is what Halper told Papadopoulos. So he was definitely on the team. And if he was on Brennan's team, and I believe he was, then certainly he would have been working directly for Brennan, and Brennan was obviously carrying the water for Clinton. Whether or not there was direct directions from Clinton or direct communications between Brennan and Clinton, it's hard to say. There will probably be an intermediary there. But I don't think it's a far stretch to imagine that happening, and I believe that eventually we will find this to be the case. And it could come at any time because it's like every day now it's 2, 3, 4 things that are falling out now. So things are moving quicker. Still a long way to go. We probably only know about half of what there is to know. This is a massive, massive conspiracy. And ultimately, I do think we're going to find that it's much larger than even what was just what was done to Trump during the 2016 campaign. I think we're going to find that a lot of these Republican presidential candidates were probably spied on, and that Obama probably kept a dossier of sorts on every one of his political enemies. Well, so Clapper is telling CNN that they were not spying on Trump officials. Oh, no, they weren't spying on Trump. No. They were spying on Russia to find out what the Russians were doing. Really? They weren't spying on the Trump campaign. They were spying on Russia to find out what Russia was doing. Really? Okay, well, if that's the case, then my question to Clapper was, did you get a FISA to spy on Mifsud? How about Akhmechan? How about Deripaska? How about Milian? Did you surveil any of the so-called Russian sources? I'm thinking you didn't. In fact, no is the answer. No, you did not. In fact, couldn't have actually spied on those Russians because you don't even know their names. I'm guessing that they didn't get FISAs on anybody or spy on anybody but people inside the Trump campaign. That's what we're going to find out. But Clapper just lies because that's all he knows how to do. It's all he's been doing his entire life, apparently. This guy just doesn't know how to tell the truth. He lies when it's easier to tell the truth. This guy just can't tell the truth. That's just, you can only conclude this. That's all he does is lie. Every time I see him. And he does it so effortlessly that you can tell that, this is just what he does. He has perfected the art of lying. And so he can do it with impunity. He can do it without even breaking a sweat. I mean, he doesn't, he could probably beat a lie detector test. Because he, in a lot of ways, probably believes his own lies. John Podesta. Now, that's someone we haven't heard very much from lately. He's been keeping a very low profile. Do you remember when he told the Congress, when he was being questioned, he said he didn't know anything about the dossier or Christopher Steele, didn't learn about any of it until after the dossier was released. Now, he was the chairman of the Clinton, election effort. He was the chairman of her campaign. He's one of her closest insiders. And he didn't know? That's a lie. And remember, when he's sitting there being interviewed, his lawyer is Mark Elias, the same lawyer that the Clinton had and DNC had. He's the guy who brought in Perkins Coie and Michael Sussman. Yet he's sitting right there next to Podesta as Podesta's being questioned. And Podesta said, I didn't know anything about the dossier. Well, really? Well, boy, you should have asked your lawyer because he's the one that hooked up the Right Reverend Clinton with the company that put out the dossier for her, commissioned it for her. So Podesta's lying his ass off, okay? Let's be clear about that. He's lying his ass off. and he's another pathological liar. But the idea that he didn't know about any of this can easily be debunked because, again, we have the Podesta emails released by WikiLeaks. Podesta emails, WikiLeaks. Remember? So there's a WikiLeaks email from Podesta, which was released by WikiLeaks, where Podesta is having a conversation with this Democratic operative, Brett Budowski. And this email conversation was happening in December of 2015. December 2015. Not 2016. December 2015. And they're having a conversation about how they would tar Trump with the Russian brush. December of 2015, Podesta talking to a Democratic operative, Budowski, talking about how they were going to tar Trump with the Russian brush. Now keep in mind, this is 4 months before the DNC went public that their systems had allegedly been hacked by the Russians. This is 9 months before Christopher Steele was even brought on to supposedly put together the dossier. Long before anyone was talking about Russia or hacking elections or Trump, Russia, or anything. I mean, Trump was still, he was the candidate, but at this point there was no evidence that he was going to be the GOP nominee. We were still in the primaries. In fact, not even in the primaries yet. Trump was still, at that time, everybody was still laughing at him. But they were obviously taking him pretty seriously because here they are discussing dirtying him up in December of 2015 before he was even a top-tier candidate. He was still considered at that time to be a joke. Just doing it for publicity for a new hotel or a casino or something. Yet here we have Podesta and Budowski talking about tarring Trump with the Russian brush. And so Podesta is talking about this, and Budowski comments back to him and says, quote, "That's good. The sooner it's clarified, the better. And the stronger, the better. And the best approach is to slaughter Donald for his bromance with Putin, but not going too far, betting on Putin, re Syria." There you go. Discussing dirtying up Trump in December of 2015, John Podesta. And you think he didn't know about the... and here we have the rotten Reverend Clinton. I mean, she's talking about it in the first debate. Trump is working for Putin. Her and Podesta both tweeting on the day that within a minute of the Hillary, 1 minute after the Isikoff story breaks, drawing the connection. Podesta, stupidly, he actually puts out his tweet an hour before, 2 hours before the story even posted, using the story as his source for the comment he's making. He's up to his eyeballs in this. That's probably why he's being so quiet. We have veteran intelligence professional Larry Johnson saying that the rotten Reverend Clinton hired Alexander Down the Hatch Downer directly through Hackloot, the private intelligence firm that he worked for and is on the board of. So we just heard last week that, in fact, Fusion GPS didn't actually hire Steele. In other words, they weren't paying him. We found out about a week ago that actually Steele was being paid directly by the rotten Reverend Clinton's campaign via Perkins Coie. And now it appears that Downer was the same way. He too was being paid directly by the rotten Reverend Clinton via Hackloot, the private intelligence firm. That's big. That's very big. That means that Downer suggesting that he wasn't in any way connected to any of the intelligence operations or investigations or any way working for the campaign. And that turns out now that the interview he just did a week ago was all lies, which I assumed it was anyway. This would actually tie him directly to the Right Reverend Clinton as a campaign operative, just like everyone else. Let's see him explain that one. And let's see if, in fact, this can be proven true. Larry Johnson's a pretty good guy. I like Larry Johnson, but he's like a lot of these former intelligence people. Sometimes he'll embellish things a bit. So we'll find out if this is just an embellishment or if there's actually any facts to prove it. Shouldn't be hard to prove. All you have to do is Attorney General Barr can subpoena the records of Perkins Coie and find out exactly who they were directly paying on behalf of the Clinton campaign. This one's not hard to figure out. And if he hasn't done that already, he certainly should. Damn, that's one of the first things I would have done. So the reason Devin Nunes could not find the explanation or intelligence to verify opening the investigation is because it did not go through Five Eyes intelligence. He's already said that that's the case. And it actually came from the intelligence community, but not through Five Eyes. It was actually done in another way. It's done in a way that sometimes these things are done. Sounds like it's raining pretty hard out there. So, anyway, it looks like what may have happened is that this information didn't go through Five Eyes intelligence, just as Nunes has discovered, but that in fact it likely was done by using a liaison reporting document, a separate document which you can fill out, I guess, for the intelligence community, where you have liaisons working for you who are not part of Five Eyes intelligence, but they are liaisons. This would include people like Halper and Downer and Misfit. And then, once you got this liaison reporting document filled out, that would not go through the Five Eyes. In fact, it would actually go into what we call an SAP, a Special Access Program. And then inside the Special Access Program, you would find the liaison report document, which would then justify various things. So it looks like Devin Nunes, yes, he knows for a fact it wasn't in the Five Eyes intelligence reports, but what he may have to do is try to get into these Special Access Programs, which are likely being protected and bottled up inside the DOJ NSD. That's likely where you'll find that document, or possibly with the National Security Advisor in those records. So they're going to have to keep digging. They're going to have to keep digging. But if they get into that Special Access Program, they'll probably find it. Now, the Right Reverend Clinton had a lot of Special Access Programs on a private server. Maybe it's time to actually get your hands on all those Right Reverend Clinton emails. And, in fact, they shouldn't even bother with that. The NSA has everything. The NSA has every single damn communication. And these data transfers go across a communication wire, or through an fiber optic cable, or through satellite or something. They're all captured. That's the bottom line. The NSA doesn't need the server. They don't need a server. They don't need a file folder. They don't need any of that. All they need is go over to the NSA and say, we want all of Hillary Clinton's communications, period, from, say, March 2015 through today. That's all they need to do. They don't need servers or anything else. Go right to the NSA and get every damn communication. And they can also do the same with the Democratic National Committee. All data that was transferred, and they'll find out. And if they don't find a data transfer for those files, guess what? They weren't transferred across the internet. That's what that would tell you. Okay, what else does this mean? Now that we have an idea that this is probably how that intelligence found its way, using a liaison report and then pumped and then buried it inside of a Special Access Program. That's a problem, because this was all happening in and around London. And what that means is that Gina Haspel would had to have been briefed. She was the CIA's station chief in London. She certainly would have attended the meetings at of the British Joint Intelligence Committee, which was affiliated, of course, with John Brennan's multi-agency task force. You know, I wonder how long it's going to take for Mr. Durham, U.S. Attorney Durham and Bill Barr to discover that Gina Haspel, Christopher No Shit Sherlock Ray, and probably Mr. Coates are playing for the other team. It'll probably won't take them long, because these are obviously a lot of the information they need has to come from these people. And when this information isn't brought forward, but they know it's information that should be there, they're probably going to figure out that these three are bad apples. And they probably need to go. They need to go. Wouldn't trust them as far as I can throw them. Haspel, Coates, and Christopher No Shit Sherlock Ray need to go. And if you're Attorney General Barr, you would call all three of them into your office and say, look, we're conducting this investigation to get to the bottom of it. I got my prosecutor and I got some other people helping me. We're requesting documents. And if we request a document from you and you come out and tell us it doesn't exist or something like that, and we find out it does, and in most cases we know it probably does or we wouldn't ask for it, we're going to charge you with a crime of obstructing our investigation. So come off those documents. And if you're guilty of some crime being involved in the plot, why don't you just go ahead and sign a statement right now, and we can work on getting you a lighter sentence. Maybe you can cooperate and work with us. That's what I would do if I were Barr. It's time to clamp down on these people and stop putting up with the bullshit. Letting these people stonewall you and play you. Time to put an end to that. Dumbass of the week. Johnny Five Finger. He's going with the entire Democratic Party. Gordon, he likes Fran Lebowitz and Brennan. John B. Lebowitz. Joe Mack, Lebowitz. Walker on the Hill, Lebowitz. Peter, Piglosi, Comey, and the skateboarder, Beto. Dennis Waddell, Lieberman, Marr, for having her on his show, and Comey. Dennis Shaw, Comey. Patty Willing, Leibowitz, and Piglosi. Dr. Lee, Leibowitz, Comey, and Brennan. Gene goes with de Blasio, Pelosi, and Biden. Jeanette goes with de Blasio, Pelosi, and Comey / Brennan. Ricky, he likes Bill Maher for having her on the show. That's 2 of those. Gary, Justin Amash. That's very good, Gary. Very good. I used to like Justin Amash. I don't anymore. Screw him. I hope he gets tossed out. He's working for the Chi-Coms anyway. William goes along with Lieb. She was my choice, by the way. This week I went with Lieb and Piglosi. We have Jamie going with Comey, Brennan, and Pelosi. Mona Lisa going with Comey and Lieb. Jonathan, he went with Pelosi, Comey, and Lieb. Larry, good old Larry, man. We love Larry. He went with Brennan, Halper, and Baker. Very nice. Very nice. T.W. Wintex, he also agrees that the entire DNC should get the dumbass of the week. 2 people on that one. Okay, folks. Yeah, it was tough competition this week, again, as it has been. But I think there was no doubt that making a threat against the President of the United States on live TV and then being forced to come out and clean it up immediately after saying it, and then giving a non-apology qualifies Fran Lebowitz easily as the dumbass of the week, and she did take the top spot this week for dumbass of the week. She was followed very closely, though. 1 vote. 1 vote. Less than Lieb was Comey. Oh, yeah. James Comey takes 2nd place. And, of course, Madam Botox, Pelosi, bringing up the rear with 7 votes. She takes 3rd place. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. You guys have a good night. See you. Bye.